Do you remember this movie, No Escape?
No.
You've seen this?
It's on an island.
The Prison Island movie,
yeah.
Ray Liotta.
I can think of it.
This is a good movie.
Really?
Yes. I mean, I haven't... Oh, it's a Martin Campbell movie.
Oh,
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Welcome to MovieTown, the Los Angeles revival cinema scene show. We are here at Whammy Analog in Silver Lake, just off Sunset Boulevard, the micro cinema and VHS store. I'm joined today by screenwriter Greg Johnson. First movie from some years back, The Last Son, a gritty Western starring Sam Worthington and Machine Gun Kelly. And then, of course, the new release, Old Guy, starring Christoph Waltz, Cooper Hoffman, and Lucy Liu, directed by Simon West. Greg, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's nice being here.
So I know, in addition to plying your wares as a screenwriter, you're also a big movie fan of the revival cinema scene here in LA. So, looking ahead at this month, this time of year, is there anything that caught your eye?
Yeah, well, I sort of glanced over the calendar, and I guess the one I sort of picked movies that I thought I had perhaps been influenced by or borrowed from a little bit in some of my own work. And so the first one I would point out was Point Blank. John Boorman directed, Lee Marvin, 1967. I think it's an influential movie. It's a movie, it's like a directors love this movie. Boorman does a lot of kind of like trippy stuff. I call it like the trippy stuff. Like there's a lot of like these flashbacks, they're almost like kind of weird and sentimental at times. And one of the reasons I love the movie is because it's set in California. It's set in San Francisco, Los Angeles. I mean, the beginning and end of the movie are in Alcatraz, most of the movies in LA. Lee Marvin in the whole movie's in this like awesome like gray suit, completely like amoral criminal, okay? And basically does like high level heists, okay? And he has this very kind of cynical worldview. It's basically, are you a professional or are you an amateur? Okay, so there's like, and so he only likes to work with professionals, but he will, at times, he's always like working angles and edges and stuff, work with amateurs. The story of Point Blank is basically a revenge movie, or a revenge tale, where he's on a heist with his best buddy and his wife. It's a little strange, but basically they do this heist and there's like less money than they thought was gonna be there. So the best buddy shoots him, leaves him for dead, and runs off with his wife because they've been having an affair unbeknownst to him behind his back. It's sort of unclear how Lee Marvin survives this, but we catch up and he's basically coming back to town. And this is one of the distinct things I remember about the movie is like he's walking through LAX airport, it's like click, clack, click, clack, click, and he's having all these like flashbacks of the incident. And then Lee Marvin is just on this revenge mission to track down this guy, okay? But it doesn't just stop there because the whole thing, the reason the guy betrayed him was because he was in debt to the mob, basically. But the mob is this thing, they nickname it the organization. Some people call it like the outfit. It has all these like kind of weird code names. And it's not like a realistic portrayal of the mob. It's kind of this like corporate syndicate entity.
Yeah, the syndicate.
They might even call it the syndicate sometimes. They call it these weird terms.
In Old Guy, the like, your movie, an aging hitman is forced to take on the new younger hitman under his wing on a job, and the mob in that, does it have a similar name?
Yes.
It's like, what is it?
I just called it the organization. And I ripped it off.
Have you seen like around that like VHS is becoming a thing? It's coming back?
Well, I see a store in my neighborhood that has VHS.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, I like this one. This feels like a very VHS-y movie to me.
Warlock. I do remember that one.
Julian Sands, Warlock. This is produced and directed by Steve Miner. Yeah, this is a fun one.
Well, what stood out to you in the?
I did look at what's coming up on the calendars, and there's one that just felt like, oh, this is the movie event of the month.
Okay.
And partly because it's a movie I haven't seen. I think it's a movie like a lot of people who would be into the revival cinema scene haven't seen, is 1900, directed by Bernardo Bertolucci from 1976. And this is at the Vista. It's playing for every night for a week. Stars Robert De Niro.
Okay.
I was surprised that the co-star is Gerard Depardieu. But the big element of this movie is 5 hours and 17 minutes long. It's known as one of the longest commercially released movies ever.
Wow.
5 hours, 17 minutes.
Endurance. And
Yeah, there's a little bit of me that's like called to that as, okay, I need to do that, like a long book or something, you know. I have to submit myself to do that as sort of a badge of honor. I think I'll kick myself if I don't, even though it's quite a commitment. I think I'll kick myself if I don't make it to this one.
Yeah, that's.
How long has this spot been open?
We just had our 3-year anniversary last month.
Okay. And, you know, when you decide to open a VHS store, was it something that you feel like you'd seen a little bit that was going on? Like, when was this like VHS moment for you kind of starting to happen?
So back in 2020, was living in a studio apartment with my now wife, and had about 800 or so VHS tapes kind of just lining all of the walls of the apartment. But, you know, not too dissimilar from this. But so yeah, I started selling them online and was just kind of instantly surprised that they were actually selling, because I just kind of, you know, at that point thought it's like, yeah, there are other people out there who are insane like me and like want as many of these things as they can.
And was the idea always to have the micro cinema, or did that?
No, that came once we found this space.
Okay.
We thought, you know, we would maybe do in-store. We thought we'd have a very tiny storefront. We would maybe do like in-store screenings, as, you know, for fun. But as soon as like we walked into this particular, you know, shaped space, and saw just kind of that area back there, it was like, oh, a screen can just live there forever.
Whammy Analog is a micro cinema and does some really interesting screenings. Have you ever heard of the movie Thundercrack with an exclamation point?
No.
Okay, so Thundercrack from 1975. This is, like, I don't even know where they found this movie, you know, looking it up, but I'm certainly very intrigued and want to see it. It's like a black and white, you know, Whammy's description of this, the world's only underground kinky art adult horror film, complete with 4 men, 3 women, and rampaging circus animals. I think it gets compared a lot, you know, to John Waters, but this is almost, but it has this horror, like set on a rainy night in a mansion, these people trapped in a mansion, so it has this more of a horror tie-in, almost like House, that cult Japanese movie or something, like weirdness to it that I think is really interesting. And just as, I mean, I think what I like about Whammy's programming so much is, yeah, you're not going to see this anywhere else in LA, certainly. And like, it's very underground. You feel like you're seeing something that like you would not know of. I don't think I've ever seen a DVD or VHS of this, Aria. Do you know this movie?
No.
It's one of these like multi-director anthologies.
Oh, okay.
Like
New York
New York Stories or Four Rooms. But this one is 10 directors: Robert Altman, Bruce Beresford, Godard, Jarman, Nick Roeg, Ken Russell, Julian Temple.
That sounds like something that should be watched.
I think I'm going to get this one. Anything else, you know, jump out to you?
The Cincinnati Kid.
Okay, Steve McQueen.
The Steve McQueen and Edward G. Robinson movie. I'm not like an expert at that movie at all, but I watched it. I do remember distinctly a period where I got into like gambling movies. I think I was kind of experimenting with, you know, how to write something in that world. I mean, then there's Rounders, which is kind of the most commercial.
California Split.
Oh God, I forgot about California.
Yeah.
Yes, actually California. Forget them. California Split just jumped straight to the top. I love California Split.
Yeah.
But Cincinnati Kid is all around gambling. That's what I liked about it. It's just all about a poker player, basically.
Yeah.
And I really, when I was watching it, I was kind of watching. This was actually a very specific conundrum. Is like, how do you make gambling kind of interesting on screen? Like, like how to do it differently.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I think one of the reasons I never really accomplished anything with that storyline is that I wasn't sure I had anything too much to offer.
And that one, that's paired, that's shown because I noticed at the new Beverly with the Thomas Crown Affair, the other
Right.
Steve McQueen, Norman Jewison movie, which was later. Just thinking of this too, of like the new Beverly and double features, how they do Humphrey Bogart double feature, they have a Burt Reynolds double feature, they have a Goldie Hawn double feature.
Yeah.
It made me think about like double features in a way. Like, do you like that kind of pairing of a double feature? No. Okay.
I don't like
okay,
this.
Yeah.
I notice they do that a lot at the revival things.
Yeah.
It's like,
mean,
do I
it might
want to
be a
watch White
marketing
Lightning
thing,
and
yeah.
Cannonball Run? No, I don't want to watch, two. I have a distinct feeling on how to do a double feature, and it's pairing two movies that are. It's finding the right pair where they're different.
Yeah.
And usually, I associate it with like, okay, good old-fashioned double feature is you buy one ticket to go see a movie, and you sneak into the second one.
We're in a VHS store. I think about it a lot, going to the video store with my parents and my sister, and you might pick out two movies because you have to compromise a little bit, and then the parents get to play their movie first, and then maybe you watch a second one right after, but it's really different.
Okay, well, think about this. Do you remember sleepovers when you're a kid, when you're at a video store like
Yeah.
this, and you pick out 3 movies, right? You don't
Yeah.
pick out, I don't think you pick out like 3 horror movies. You pick one horror movie, one action,
A comedy.
and maybe a comedy. What is this?
Beyond, Rutger Hauer. We're really doing...
Beyond Justice?
I don't know that one, Rutger Hauer.
Rutger Hauer. Elliot Gould, Omar Sharif.
Oh, pretty good.
Kidding? This is a pretty good cast, right? But this is a screener, not for rent or sale. Beyond Justice.
No, I remember.
I thought it was Blind Justice. Is that a Rutger Hauer movie?
If you knew anybody who worked at a video store, sometimes, like I knew someone who worked at like a local video store. And sometimes they would get like, one of my sister's friends gave me just like a garbage bag full of like these screener tapes. A director retrospective one that the American Cinematheque is doing this month that I thought was really interesting because I know this director's a few of his movies really well, but I don't know the director by name. And the director is Allan Moyle, a Canadian filmmaker. And the big movie that he did for me is Pump Up the Volume, 1990.
Sure, yeah.
Christian Slater, Samantha Mathis. Like this was I feel like I caught this movie at very much the right time growing up, but I've revisited it, and I think it's a really good movie.
Oh yeah, it holds
and really
up well.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it really holds up well. And so, Christian Slater is playing this pirate radio DJ at night, Hard Harry. And it's just like, the Christian Slater performance is really, really good. And he just like kind of goes for it. And, not totally likable all the time, certainly like pushing that edge. I love it. And then his double personality at the high school, they just put him in glasses. It's sort of he's the nerdy outsider at high school because he's wearing glasses. But it's got some like fantastic kids rebelling against their parents and the school administration. Do you remember this movie much?
Oh, of course, yeah. The one thing I remember very distinctly about the movie, his room in the movie. He had the coolest high school, it was like, was it his basement?
Yeah, it's a basement.
Yeah, and he had all this space. It was like in an apartment.
Well, Greg Johnson, thank you for joining me.
Okay.
Should we go check out some VHS tapes?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Oh,
Hudson Hawk. This is a very like VHS movie.
Oh yeah.
This hasn't retained sort of the cult status I thought it might, but I liked this, I think, for the age I was. but it was considered like the worst movie of its year.
That's what
think.
I remember.
But I watched it a lot,
Yeah.
like back when HBO would just play those movies several times a day. I think I watched that movie a lot.
Who's the actress? Is that Annie McDowell? Who's the actress in it?
Yeah, Andy McDowell.